Well, folks, here we are at the edge of beautiful Finch Creek in Hoodsport at the Fjord Oyster Bank, getting ready for another Sheriff Sit-Down. And how are you doing, Sheriff Spurling? Good to see you.
You too. Another beautiful day.
Oh, my gosh.
Thanks for being here, Jeff.
It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Our great friends at our community credit union put these on. You're getting ready to talk to more community members in just a little bit. And it's always so inspiring to see people come in and talk with you and really take ownership and pride of public safety in Mason County. And really, with such a small staff comparative to how large the county is, you've got to have that buy-in and you've got to have that support from folks.
Absolutely. You know, I think we've talked about it a little bit, but this comes back to Sir Robert Peel in the 1800s. Policing is done in modern times by the consent of the public that you police, and they are actually just as responsible for public safety as we are. We're just the ones getting paid to do it, and there's not enough of us. It's not like the military coming and forcefully occupying.
Right.
I need all of their eyes and ears. I need their suggestions. We need the community coming together and putting all these ideas together on how to make our community safe. We're just the ones that enforce the law.
Talk to me a little bit, and this is kind of goes in line with this, but also to Neighborhood Watch, Community Watch. What are some tips that you would give to somebody without getting right in? Let's say they hear, something that's people are in downtown Shelton and they're down at the end of the block and they're kind of swearing at each other. What are your tips for citizen engagement on that kind of a thing? What do you do? What don't you do? What should they just call right away 911, or should they say, hey, come on, we're in the public, and try to de-escalate it that way? What are your thoughts on that?
I think a lot of it has to do with, do you know the individuals,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
Do you know the community that you're dealing with? Have you dealt with these people and you know that they're just hot-headed and they're not going to hit each other, they're just having an argument?
Yeah.
That's a little different than somebody you have no idea that's from outside the community that you're not familiar with, and it appears that they may be aggressive. We want to always be careful with vigilantism because that's never something that we're wanting, but I don't restrict or tell people how to intervene, because if somebody's being assaulted and the person cannot defend themselves, I'm not going to tell you not to intervene.
Right.
That's what we do as human beings sometimes. And some people will say, no, I don't feel comfortable intervening. That's not who I am. I'll call. You should always call if there's any physical or any crime going on. Call first thing, and then if you get to choose whether you're going to intervene before we get there.
Yeah. You could even say, I'm calling the police right now.
Absolutely. And that's going to help protect you if you do intervene.
Yeah.
Again, you go back to the Wild West, and obviously we're far from that now, but citizens took care of things.
Yeah.
But it can go way too far, right? You can have lynchings and those type of things where without due process.
The mob mentality.
What gives America the greatness that it has is we have due process, and we make sure that we go through that to make sure that the person is actually innocent until proven guilty, all of those civil rights that we have as well.
One of the things that I have been reading in the paper, and this might be a Shelton Police proper more situation than a county sheriff, but it is trickling out. Community Lifeline is closing, and that is going to put a major impact on the homeless population that were in that facility. Now, again, starting to spread back out of that facility. You see a lot more at Brewer Park. You see a lot more in the downtown core. But people are making their way back out into the county. What have you heard about that? What are some things that you guys as a department are looking at when it comes to those?
That's a real issue for every community right now. And the thing that I think to find that balance is to differentiate between those that are down on their luck and they're homeless as a result of circumstances outside of their control,
right,
and providing services for those people to give them a hand up and to get them on the right track. And I got to tell you, our community is fantastic at that.
Sure.
But sometimes people are enabling criminal vagrancy because there's a certain population of our homeless people who been offered all of the resources available, been offered every chance and every opportunity to get a hand up, and they refuse it, and they do not want to comply with anything that gets them sober or that they, their mental illness that prevents them, other things like that. We've got to find a difference between enabling criminal vagrancy and assisting those that need it. And that is the balancing act I think that every community has to deal with. I know the city's dealing with that.
Yeah.
We're dealing with that. When it comes down to people going onto other people's property and squatting, and right now we've got some homelessness issues. There's sewage is
Yeah.
not managed, and it's going down into our tight flats.
Yeah,
and
for
I mean,
sure.
it's significant.
Yeah.
We've got a group that's actually going after that right now, and it's affecting the community. We had a fire. You remember the McEwen Prairie fire?
Yeah.
The homeless camps up along the railroad tracks by the yacht club. We had a fire.
I saw that picture.
They responded multiple times. Fire did, and that was endangering our community.
Yeah.
And these are people that we've offered resources to. We have lots of nonprofits that are really willing to help and go out of their way, and they refuse those services, and they're squatting and they're doing illegal things. And we had an assault first up in that camp. So at that point, the Navy gave the county the permission to remove, or asked us to remove, these squatters, and we did. And we went through a slow process when we did it. We took all the nonprofits up, we took the mental health counselors up, we took all the resources up well in advance to removing them,
Yeah.
letting them know that we're going to be removing them, giving them plenty of time, more than a month, to adjust and do that type of stuff. And then we did remove them at the property owner's request, because it is illegal to squat and do those things.
Yeah.
And when it comes back to endangering the community, and now we can see that this person will not accept services, then we're going to move them along. You asked the first question, and I'll go back to that with Community Lifeline. Again, that's in the city. Some problems with how Community Lifeline was run, and some financial woes that they've come. The city came and bailed them out for
Right.
a while. The county has actually said, no, we're not going to bail you out again until these things were taken care of. I'm not sure all the details on that.
Yeah.
But that is going to change the dynamic of the downtown. The thing that's going on right now is we have is Evergreen Treatment Services right now. They have a motorhome that they pull up right in that same area.
I've seen that.
And they serve approximately 100 to 150 people a day, and they're providing Suboxone, methadone, and it's actually drawing people from other communities into our community to
Yeah.
go and
Yeah.
receive those services. Now, when a lot of people supported this, we really wanted to make sure that they were getting counseling to get out of. What's the success rate of this program? We're
Yeah.
not just doing a program just to enable them by providing a high to them. That's not the goal, to help somebody out of addiction. There's usually counseling and other things that have to take place. So that's some of the things that the community's questioning.
Sure.
Is this a valuable
Sure.
thing? Is this helping or hurting?
Yeah.
Is this enabling, or what is it doing? And we just got to keep trying to take a run at this problem and solving it as a community.
You know, when we talk about the ways that policing has advanced through technology, you know, first it was a phone call that something was going on, and then there was cameras around, and then body cameras, and now you have that flock camera system. And you were telling me before we started that this recently, within the last week or two, has been a very successful thing for the county.
Big kudos to the city of Shelton. They moved forward with a project to place multiple flock cameras, and flock just happens to be, we're not promoting only that product, it just happens to be the main one out there right
Sure.
now that's all interconnected. And the city has put multiple flock cameras in place, which is a license plate reader.
Okay.
And it'll capture the identity of a vehicle. And what I mean by that, it's a maroon van or a dark colored pickup truck, whatever it is. It does not show any occupants in the vehicle. It has no facial recognition. It's
Okay.
very specific with that.
Yeah.
That information is held for 30 days, and it's available to law enforcement. Now, what it does, there's flock cameras all over the state now. And if somebody commits a crime somewhere else, let's say Bellevue, and they committed a crime, a robbery, and they're a suspect, the moment they drive into the city of Shelton, the Shelton Police Department's getting notified. Another one is just in the last week.
I'm sorry, hold on. So it matches the license plate or the description of the vehicle.
Yes.
And so I know you continue here in a second, but I remember many conversations that you and I, your predecessor and I have had about some of those barriers that law enforcement was handed a couple years back, where you couldn't do any of that stuff. You say, oh well, there was a white truck that was involved in a collision and they just left down railroad, for example. You go, well, did you see it? No. Oh well, sorry, there's not really a lot we can do. This seems like flip that.
This is changing the game for
love
us.
it.
I got to tell you the two success stories that the
Please,
city has
yeah.
had just this week, and our people have been utilizing it as well in the county. And the success story was a sexual assault against a juvenile. Very traumatized by the incident. And I can't get into too much because it's a current case. Very traumatized, didn't have a lot of information, just gave basic information. They were able to use the flock camera and find the suspect and get the evidence that they need, whereas they wouldn't have before.
Right.
That camera afforded us, or law enforcement, the city, enough information to now follow a investigative track and let us right to where we needed to go. They also just solved a kidnapping. That's just in the last week.
Amazing.
Those cameras have done that for the community, especially in law enforcement. And, there's that balancing act of Big Brother. We're being watched. And how much do we give up on our privacy as individual citizens? Yet the laws in Washington State have limited law enforcement's ability in so many ways. This has been a tool that's been extremely helpful to us.
Pendulum is swinging back a little bit on that.
And I understand the reservation that people have. Well, who's getting this information? Are they selling it to companies to figure out marketing and that type of stuff? Those are all legitimate questions.
But it's not happening.
Not as far as I know. I know that we haven't gone into a contract with Flock, so I haven't gone through all of that. But I know some of our communities are. We got a lot of communities like Alderbrook, Grapeview, Lakeland Village, where there's one or two entrances. And if you have a camera and a crime occurs in that, and the community pays for that, and we go back and check, okay, how many cars left during this time period? It's a starting place for the investigation, whereas we wouldn't have it otherwise.
That's awesome. That sounds great for the community. School year wrapping up. I saw pictures of you giving a presentation or a little speech to the Shelton High NJROTC climber crew. Now, these are the folks that you see, the kids that you see helping to park cars during Oyster Fest. They're always out. And the company itself, the climber crew, the NJROTC company, they are very successful when they go out and compete in different rifle and maneuvers and things like that. I know you had a chance to talk with them. What was that like, seeing the next wave of potential law enforcement or military U.S. personnel?
I got to tell you, it's such a good foundation for these kids to learn discipline, to learn the structure in a society that almost in some points scoffs its structure. Kids thrive in that. They want to know what the boundaries are. I mean, you like it. I liken it to, can you imagine playing soccer if there were no rules?
No, it'd be terrible.
There'd be no boundaries. One guy
you just
kicks it off.
You go, they pick it up and run with it.
Exactly. So the kids like to know what's expected of them, and then they can go after it hard. And these kids are so proud of them. They looked sharp. They had a ball where they were just celebrating. They kept their chain of command. The leaders out there, the lieutenant colonel and the chief, have just done such a great job, and they're a great representative. They've done 1,500 plus hours of community service, and their goal is 2,000 for this year.
That's amazing.
Everything from running flag detail for us during our breakfasts to doing parking at Oyster Fest. They are so involved, and they're teaching those kids to give back to the community. And I was the guest of honor speaker there, and what I talked to them about was, look, each one of you are gifted, and each one of you are better than every single person in that room at something. Your job as a young person is to find out what your gifting is, what really makes you tick, what are you just really good at, and then figure out how you can use that to better our community. And that's where you really have fulfillment.
I love it. You talk about setting the boundaries and then letting the youth get to the edge of those boundaries. And I tell that to my son all the time. It's important to know the limits of all the rules in place, and then you can start to kind of
and then you can
push them a
play
little.
The game hard.
And you can kind of figure out what works, what doesn't work, and you're right, exactly. Kids thrive in a structured boundary kind of a thing. And it's not like you're controlling them. You're keeping them safe. You're keeping them healthy. But you're able to explain clearly, you can do all sorts of stuff up to this line. And then they know what they're working with.
Right, and they like to be challenged, too.
Yeah.
They want to be pushed beyond their boundaries, whether they say it or not, because now they've determined, I can do things I didn't think I could do.
Yeah.
And I had the chance in the military to be a drill sergeant at Fort Dix, Fort Jackson, Fort Benning, and Fort Sill, and I had 18-year-olds primarily coming through there, and to watch those kids when they're pushed, when the boundaries are there and they're held to a standard, just begin to thrive. And that was my story. I didn't have any structure as a kid. So when I was brought into the Marine Corps, I found that I really do well under that structure.
Yeah.
And I enjoy knowing the boundaries so that I can go after it hard. And I taught the Kiwanis Law Enforcement Youth Camp, another thing our community has out at the State Patrol Academy since the 1970s, and watch these juniors and seniors come in and be put into basically a police academy.
Yeah.
And they just love it. They thrive at it. I understand there's those that are more of they tend towards the art brain, I should say.
Right.
Whereas, no, I'd rather be free-flowing, and I don't want that structure because it limits me. And I understand everybody's different, but a lot of the kids really like that structure.
But even within that sort of art analogy, there are set guidelines
absolutely.
and rules
and music
that
and art.
People they fill into, and it helps their creative process and
That's a good
understand
point.
a little bit more about what they're doing. I love these conversations. You got a ton of people waiting for you. So we're going to wrap this up. These conversations brought to you by our great friends at our Community Credit Union. We're here at the Oyster Bank right along Finch Creek. It's a beautiful day as we're moving into summer, and I really appreciate all this time.
Oh, you too, and good luck on your marathon.
It's coming
Everybody
up.
know you got that
It's
going.
coming
That's
up.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's an
thank you.
impressive thing.
We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. But
All right.
Sheriff Spurling, thank you.
Thank you.